Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing a preview of Tuesday's election night primaries. We're going to see a lot of states. We have 4: Maine, Nevada, North Dakota, and South Carolina that all have their polls closing. Now this video is going to focus on the state of South Carolina and its primaries that are taking place. I've done previous videos for the state of Maine and North Dakota. I grouped that into one. Nevada I did as well, and now this one's focusing on South Carolina. So if you want to watch any of those other primaries after this one, they're all going to be on my channel. They're going to be my most recent uploads when you look under my videos tab on my main homepage on YouTube. So if you want to learn more about those, you can. At the end of this video, I'm either going to have Nevada or Maine likely linked to the end of this one. One of the two I haven't decided yet, but those will be linked as well. I can put them in my channel description as well for it if you want to look at those. So I may do that, make it convenient for you. But this video is on South Carolina, and there are actually a lot of very important primaries underway here. There are the U.S. Senate primaries, there's the governor primary, there's all the U.S. House races, which of course have a very important role on which party will control the House in heading into 2027 in the new Congress. And you also have Attorney General and Secretary of State as well. So first things first, South Carolina. Let's talk about the U.S. Senate race, as this is a U.S. Senator that everyone has an opinion on without a doubt. This is Republican U.S. Senator Lindsay Graham. He is facing a primary challenge from about a total of 6 candidates in the race, including himself. I would say most prominent Republicans in the race dropped out of the race. I would say Mark Lynch most likely holds the most significant challenge to Lindsey Graham, but the fact is, Lindsey Graham in this race has consolidated a lot of support, and President Trump's endorsement of Lindsey Graham has been a big reason why. We've already seen in 2026 President Trump go after incumbent U.S. senators like Bill Cassidy, and he was successfully primaried out there. We saw President Trump go after John Cornyn and endorse Ken Paxton, and that primary just took place. That has happened as well. And we also saw on the House side of things President Trump go after Thomas Massey and successfully primary him out as well. So if Lindsey Graham was not loyal to President Trump and President Trump wanted to try and primary Lindsey Graham out, the opportunity was certainly there, and he definitely had a very strong chance of being successful in doing so. Graham already has, despite being the incumbent with Trump's endorsement, a good amount of Republicans even that do not approve of the senator. But not only has President Trump endorsed Lindsey Graham on the race, given the amount of times that he's put out statements endorsing him, you could say Trump has doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down, 5 times down, 6 times down. President Trump is being very vocal in his support for Lindsey Graham, and that basically ends things. The most recent poll from Public Sentiment Institute has Lindsey Graham at 51%, Mark Lynch at 26%, 18% say other among the other candidates, with 4% of the vote undecided. Yeah, so with President Trump's endorsement of Lindsey Graham in this race, no one clear challenger to Lindsey Graham. Like, there's no Ken Paxton or even a Trump-endorsed candidate like the Louisiana Congresswoman Julia Letlau, who's running against Bill Cassidy. It looks like Lindsey Graham has enough support shored up, coupled with the endorsement of President Trump, to ultimately survive this Republican primary. So Lindsey Graham, it is going to be interesting because Graham certainly has his fair share of Republicans who dislike him, and a lot of Democrats and independents that certainly do. But in terms of this primary, it'll be interesting to see, but I think Lindsey Graham has his primary essentially locked up as the incumbent, but the results in the margins that happen with will be very interesting to keep an eye out for. So that's the Republican primary for U.S. Senate. For the Democratic primary, there are 3 candidates running in Annie Andrews, Brandon Brown, and Kyle Freeman to take on Lindsey Graham. I am going to talk about the general election briefly at the end of the video as well, so don't worry about that. For the Democratic primary, of these 3 candidates, the polling in the race that has taken place thus far, there's only been one poll, and that seemed the Citadel poll from May 21st to 31st, so still relatively pretty recently. Annie Andrews has 45%, Brandon Brown 14%, and Kyle Freeman has 5%. So unless that poll is wildly off, we're going to see a general election of Annie Andrews versus Lindsey Graham, one that the general election predictions currently have as mixed between likely Republican and safe Republican from most of the rankings. The Economist is being bold and having it as lean Republican. The only 2 polls in the race are from Democratic pollsters, and they show Lindsey Graham up by 5 and up by 6 in their respective polls, with a lot of undecided vote. And if you know if you see my prior videos, you'll know my take on usually partisan polls, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. They typically overvalue their candidate in terms of the margin of victory from anywhere from 4 to 5 points. So if Graham is leading by 5 points in a Democratic poll, he's probably up somewhere like 9 to 10 when all the election results actually happen. And the poll, when he's up by 6, he's again in that range of 10 to 11 points. So I think that likely ranking is more solid for South Carolina. So actually, I'm going to scratch that. Instead of revisiting it, I'll just do it now since we're already saying it. South Carolina, there's going to be a lot of Senate races on the Senate map that are held by Republicans that Democrats are hoping to make competitive and put in the toss-up category. South Carolina, I would not have that as one. It's possible it goes above 15 points, but I think it's more likely it would go as likely Republican with Lindsey Graham at the top of the ticket. That's what it was in his Senate race in, I do believe, 2020 against then Democratic candidate Jamie Harrison, who lost to Graham by 10.3%, despite the most expensive race in U.S. history at that time, being that South Carolina Senate race, Harrison and Graham raising tons and tons of money in that race. Graham holds on and wins by 10.3%. I would imagine, even with Graham's popularity issues, I don't believe Annie Andrews, from what I've heard, I don't think she'll be able to raise as much money as Jamie Harrison will. So I think we're going to see a Senate race where Graham wins by probably around the same margin, if not a little bit more, even in a bluer election environment. So that is the Senate race in South Carolina. Next, we're going to move on to the governor's race, because the governor's race in South Carolina is very interesting, but we will be revisiting the House races as well in one moment. House race and governor's race in South Carolina. The Democratic primary, there are 3 candidates running in Billy Webster, Jermaine Johnson, and Mullins McLeod. Now, Jermaine Johnson, I do believe from what I've heard, is considered to be the favorite in this Democratic governor primary race here. I will just pull up the polling to confirm, but I do believe he is the leader. And the Citadel poll, Jermaine Johnson leads at 33%. Billy Webster's in second at 18%, 43% undecided. The poll from the South Carolina Policy Council from before that had Johnson at 27, Webster at 14, 49% undecided. And the South Carolina Policy Council poll from back in January and February, 25% for Johnson. Webster wasn't in the race at the time, still 67% decided. So all 3 polls have showed Jermaine Johnson leading and have shown him leading by more than 10 points. There's enough undecided vote left out there to skew the race, where it's possible for McLeod or Webster to get more support than Jermaine Johnson and ultimately win this race. But based on the polling data that we have, and again, primaries are very tricky because there's usually not a ton of polling data, but I think we could say pretty confidently Jermaine Johnson is the leader heading into election night and will likely be the Democratic candidate. Now, the Republican race is a lot more, no offense to Democrats, a lot more interesting. There are currently, I believe, 6 Republicans on the ballot. The one candidate, Josh Kimbrell, did drop out of the race. So really, there are 5 candidates essentially on the ballot, though Kimbrell may get like a point or 2, but he did drop out. Alan Wilson, Nancy Mace, Pamela Evette, Ralph Norman, and Rom Reddy are the Republicans in this race. This race is very interesting, and this race has gotten definitely very competitive and very nasty. Especially, no disrespect to her, but Nancy Mace has been a big element in pretty much a lot of the nastiness in this race, from whether it's Pamela Evette and Nancy Mace going at it, especially after Evette got the endorsement of President Trump. And Nancy Mace also, when she first entered the race, was going after Attorney General Alan Wilson, making a lot of very bold claims and statements about him in the race as well. So it's a very competitive, very fiery race on the South Carolina Republican governor primary. I also believe, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, South Carolina, I do believe the runoff rules, you have to break 50%. If not, it will go to a runoff of the top 2 vote getters, very similar to the Georgia elections that we saw not too long ago. So in terms of the Republican race, Evette, Mace, Norman, U.S. Representative of the 5th District, Rom Reddy, and Alan Wilson. The polling in this race have shown a very, very tight race, even with President Trump a few days ago making the endorsement of Pamela Evette in this race, lieutenant governor, and I believe in a statement going after Nancy Mace as well. Nancy Mace has been a very big critic of President Trump and the situation, how he's handled the Epstein files. And that's been a very core point of Nancy Mace's campaign, and President Trump has essentially paid her back by not endorsing Nancy Mace and endorsing Pamela Evette, who is the lieutenant governor of South Carolina. Trump is also very close and good friends with the current governor, Henry McMaster, of South Carolina as well. So where things currently stand in the polling, Across all the averages here, Pamela Evette leads 18.3%. We have then Alan Wilson in second place at 17.5%. Nancy Mace comes in third at 14.1. In fourth, Ralph Norman is in third at 14.6. Rom Reddy's in fifth at 12.8. Still over about 22.7, nearly 23% of voters. 2 out of 10 voters in this race are either voting other or currently undecided in this race. We do have a few handful of recent polls that have come out in the last few days here from a lot of different pollsters. They've showed Pamela Evette usually in the top 2 in every single one of them. But the question is, who is the second Republican? Because it's looking very likely no candidate will break 50% of the vote. It will go to a runoff. Who is that candidate? Well, in the Starboard Communications poll, it was Alan Wilson tied with Evette in this race. For the Public Sentiment Institute poll, Nancy Mace actually leads Pamela Evette 30% to 25% in that one. Coefficient poll, Evette has 23, Rom Reddy, the businessman, has 17%, 1 point above Alan Wilson, 2 points ahead of Ralph Norman, and 6 points ahead of Nancy Mace. The Trafalgar poll, Trafalgar, I would say, is a very prominent and well-known Republican pollster. Evette has 24% in that one, Wilson has 19%, Norman has 15, Reddy has 18, Mace has 13. Tyson Group from the beginning of June as well. Alan Wilson, Pamela Evette splitting first and second place. So it seems there's a ton of undecided votes, so this really can go in any possible scenario. It's definitely honestly possible that any of these 2 candidate combinations could advance to the general election of Evette, Mace, Norman, Reddy, and Wilson. The most common denominator for the polling has been Pamela Evette and Alan Wilson being the top 2 vote getters in the last 2 weeks or so. But you do have a poll here and there that shows Mace getting in, Rom Reddy getting in. But the amount of undecided vote right now really makes it difficult to say for sure what's going to happen. The only thing I can say definitively is I would be pretty stunned if one candidate went outright. I think it's going to a runoff. The candidates under 50%, I think it's going to happen. I would imagine with the endorsement of President Trump, similar to Burt Jones in Georgia, we're going to see Pamela Evette be one of the 2 candidates. The question will it be Alan Wilson? Will it be Nancy Mace? Will it be Ralph Norman? Will it be Rom Reddy? Literally any 4 of them could be the second candidate or even the first candidate to Pamela Evette. In terms of prediction sides, I honestly have no clue. I would say I do think Alan Wilson, is the favorite right now to be up there with Pamela Evette in the runoff election, but 22% undecided. We don't know who it's going to break for or by how much it breaks for. It's really possible. Nancy Mace not getting the Trump endorsement is certainly going to hurt her. Being very critical of Trump is certainly going to hurt her in a Republican primary, but Rick Jackson is someone that did very well in Georgia as well, and he didn't have the endorsement of President Trump, and he got to the runoff as well. So it could be possible. It could be Mace, it could be Norman, it could be Reddy, Wilson, anyone's guess at this current point in time. In terms of the general election, no polling yet, but it's listed as solid Republican from most likely Republican from race to the White House. The polling, or the election results, was Henry McMaster plus 17 in 2022 after it went for McMaster by 8 points in 2018. The rankings do have it as safe Republican, which is over a 15-point victory. And I do think if it's Pamela Evette or Alan Wilson, I do think the Republicans will win and will win pretty handedly. But it voted for Trump by about 18 points in 2024. With Lindsay Graham on the ballot as well, it's going to fall under 15 points on that one. I think it's possible it could as well on this one. I'm not totally sold it's going to be over 15 points. I would probably start South Carolina governor's race for now out as likely Republican and not safe Republican, just because I think the election environment with President Trump's approval ratings nearly down about 20 points right now. Democrats are winning the generic ballot of the Republicans by anywhere from 7 to 8 points from a few polling averages I've seen. I think South Carolina still goes red. I think it just falls a hair under 15 points, like 14 or 14 and even 14.5% in the governor's race. But I do think Republicans are favored to win the Senate and governor's race by large margins, but I think under 15 points in both of those scenarios. So that's the governor's race. Now we move on to the House races in South Carolina, where it's going to be very interesting to see here. Republicans, I do believe, failed to get the 6th district of James Clyburn redrawn. So the consensus rankings have it as safe Republican. This one, the 6th district, is listed also on the Cal Sheet side of things, is now likely Democrat as well. In terms of the primaries here, we can see pretty much all the districts are locked in terms of competitiveness. Republicans are favored to win the 1st, 7th, 5th, 4th, and 5th. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th district all safe, over 15%. James Clyburn, the longtime Democratic representative, is favored to win the 6th district, safe Democrat, after Republicans failed to redraw the map. And now that it's primary day, not going to redraw the map now. Primary is taking place. Republicans missed their chance to do that. Does it get revisited in 2028 with maybe a new governor, maybe some new state house or senators? Wait and see. But for these primaries, I think a lot of them are essentially formalities to see. Aside from the 6th district, where James Clyburn is getting primary challenge from Frederick Goodwin, assuming Clyburn wins there, he'll win the election. The rest of the districts, I would argue, are Democrats looking to see which Republican they'll probably lose to. The 1st district has 7 candidates in the race, in Ben Frazier, Francina Dantzler, Mac DeFord, Matthew Fulmer, Max Diaz, Myra Rivera Vasquez, and Nancy LaCour. The 2nd district, Daniel Sharif, David Robinson, Roger Pruitt, and Zion Khalifa. The 3rd district, Democrats Ernest Mackins and Eunice Leigh-Macker. So in a 2-person race, I can't have breaking 50%, almost guaranteed, so it'll probably be good to avoid a runoff in that one. 4th district, Courtney McLean is running unopposed in this. 5th district, Andrew Clough and Mallory Dittmer in that race. 6th district, I showed you, Clyburn versus Goodwin. 7th district, John Vincent unopposed in that one. For the Republican side, going to be a safe win in the 1st district. It is an open race, though. I do believe the Republican representative in this one, Nancy Mace, obviously running for governor, so now it's an open race to fill her seat. A lot of Republicans running this race: Alex Perlbath, Cindy Riley, Dan Brown, Jay Byers, Jenny Honeycutt, Kendall Luden, Logan Cunningham, Mark Stanford, Mark Smith, Sam McCown, and Tyler Dykes. I am going to pull up the House side of things just to see where the things currently stand in these races. I do believe President Trump may have made an endorsement in a lot of these races, though I'm not sure off the top of my head. So we'll go through and see in the 1st district if there's been any endorsements made here. Mark Smith has the endorsement of former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum, but no endorsement from the president in this race. So nothing out of the first race for Republican endorsements, but that should be a safe Republican win for whichever candidate does end up advancing. I don't know. There's been one poll that showed Jenny Costa Honeycutt leading over Mark Smith 20-16, though still 37% decided. So definitely a runoff happening in the 1st district on the Republican side. We'll have to wait and see how that goes in that district. So that's where the 1st district stands. In the 2nd district, Republican Joe Wilson, the incumbent, facing a primary from 2 Republicans, Hamp Redmond and Sam Gibbons. I would imagine Joe Wilson, as the incumbent, will probably win re-election in that primary. 3rd district, Sherry Biggs is running unopposed. She'll win that one easily. The 4th district, William Timmons, their incumbent, running again, probably win that easily as well, facing the primary challenge from David Atchley and Robert Lee. The 5th district, Wes Clymer, running unopposed. He'll win that easily as well. The 6th district, this is essentially to be the sacrificial lamb to lose to Jim Clyburn in the general election. John Peterson and Maurice Washington in this race. One of these two will win the primary and will then lose to Clyburn in the general. And then the 7th race, Russell Fry is running unopposed on that one. So yeah, the general election rankings for South Carolina's map, since the map was not redrawn, is baked in. Republicans will win in all the districts but the 6th. Clyburn will win safe in the 6th district. Pretty much bet it all on that. As for the Attorney General races, Republicans are going to be favored in the races at the general level, would be my guess. Attorney General Richard Hursick will be the Democrat candidate. Republicans, there are 3 Republicans running in David Stumbo, David Pascoe, and Stephen Goldfinch, so we'll see how that primary plays out. But again, the general election, Republicans are favored. It is South Carolina, after all. Secretary of State, Edwina Winter and Jason Belton are running for the Democratic primary. Republican Secretary of State, Mark Hammond, the incumbent, running unopposed. In that race, he should win that race also with probably very little of a problem. So that's where things stand in South Carolina for the primary. Again, I have done primary elections as well, previews in Maine and Nevada and North Dakota as well. So these are on my channel. You can check them all out for Tuesday's primary. If you live in any of these states or are curious about any of these, you can check them all out on my channel. They're under some of my most recent videos that I have put out. In terms of Tuesday, I do plan on doing a live stream on Tuesday for the election results. So I'm not 100% sure, but I do plan on doing it. So hopefully that all works out. But yeah, South Carolina, I do believe their polls close. I want to say I want to believe it's 7 p.m. Eastern time. I think they're one of the earlier states that closed their polls on election night. So I believe look around 7 p.m. for its polls to close Eastern time. I don't believe in the other videos I did put out what time the polls close, so I do probably wish I did that. But in Maine, I want to say it's 8 p.m. Nevada, I think it's 10 p.m. I believe. And then North Dakota should be either 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. as well. But definitely, again, don't quote me on that. Look that up if you want to be definitively sure what's happening in those races. But I hope you enjoyed this video looking at the primary preview in South Carolina. If you did, I appreciate if you would hit like and subscribe on the video. It really does help out me and the channel when you do that. I post at least one new video every single day that I hope you will check out going forward as well. For now, that'll be it. Thank you so much for watching. Please, again, remember to hit like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in a future video.